Hey everybody, Ian Campbell here, CEO of Mission Suite, and welcome to my childhood home. I am here visiting my folks for a few days with my wife and my son, and I had some downtime here, so I figured why not record a couple videos. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how to get people to open up when networking, right? I mean, we all know that networking is a great way to develop business, right? I mean, it's a great way to get out there, to start doing your thing, to get to know people and to get your brand out there and to make sure that people know what you're doing and ultimately can hire you. But the only way to do that is to make sure that they're talking more than you are. So how do you get them to open up? Well, that's what we're going to dive into here today. Now, I've been to a lot of networking events over the course of the past 20 years of building my businesses. And, you know, I've seen a lot of things. I've seen a lot of events that were really great, right? A lot of events that you really want to go back to and that there's tons of people to follow up with. And I've seen a lot of events that were pretty bad, events that you never wanted to go back to again. Maybe there was nobody to follow up with. Maybe they were just bad events at bad places. Who knows? But the majority of them have just kind of been okay. But realistically, what makes all the difference in the world? Well, that's the people. Because no matter what, no matter how bad an event might feel or how much you might dislike the place that you're holding, that the event's being held at, if you meet the right people, then it's always a good event. It's always time well spent. So how do you know the difference? Well, again, we're going to talk a little bit about the questions that you need to be asking to get people that you're talking to open up and figure out if it's worth spending more time with them, right? If it's worth following up with them, if it's worth connecting with them later. So that's the focus of today's video. So what are some of these questions that I'm talking about? So I'm going to go through 5 of them here, and let's dive in. So this first question here, I feel like should be a pretty obvious one, right? You're at a networking event, you're there to talk business. The reasonable question to ask is, what do you do, right? There are a lot of people that don't agree with me on this, and I get that, that's fine, right? There are a lot of people that think that what do you do should be a question that maybe people ask later on, right? After you've gotten together for a first one-on-one, where that's where you can really dive into what you do. But again, your focus here is on networking. Your focus is on fulfilling your goal for business development, for prospecting, for meeting new people, for making new connections, right? So in order to do that, realistically, you have to know what that other person does. Otherwise, you have no idea if the 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes that you're going to spend with them standing there at the networking event is worth the time, or if you should actually be moving on to talk to other people. So there are a number of ways that you can do this so that it just doesn't feel like, so what do you do for a living, kind of a question. There are things that you can ask, there are things that you can say. So, okay, so tell me, what do you do? What do you love about what you do? What are the things that really fulfill you about what you do, right? We all do different things for a reason. Why do you do what you do? Right? I mean, all these different things are ways that you can kind of start asking these questions to make it a little bit more engaging than just, what do you do? But at the end of the day, again, one of the first things that you got to find out if you're going to use networking as a real prospecting tool or as a real business development tool or a referral relationship building tool, you have to know what that other person does. Because if I'm selling CRM services, as I am, and I go and meet somebody who's selling insurance, the odds are that I'm not going to be able to build a quality referral relationship with them. They might be a good prospect for me, but if I know that they already have a CRM that they're using, then realistically, there's not a whole lot to be done, or not a whole lot to be gained out of that conversation, realistically, for either of us. And so, oftentimes, if that what you do question isn't answered to something that you need it to be in a way that you need it to be answered, then it's probably best just to cut bait. All right, so now that you know what they do, it's time to start talking about some of the particulars about how they do, about what they're doing. And specifically, what I like to do is find out who they're working with, right? What types of clients are you working with? Because again, I'm here to build a relationship, right? And assuming that we're not going to be identified, that I'm not identifying this person as a prospect, I'm focusing now on figuring out how we might be able to network together. And so with that, what I'm looking for is people who are working with the same people that I am. Again, the guy that sells copiers isn't a great connection for me, because oftentimes the person that's buying copiers isn't going to be the same person that's buying CRMs. Maybe they are, maybe they're not, I don't know. But if the guy that's selling copiers is going directly to the business owner and not working with an office manager, what have you, maybe that is the right person, right? I don't know. That's what I have to find out. So I have to know not only what they do, but who they're actually working with, who their perfect client is, who they're actually talking to inside of that organization, and then figure out from there, where do we go? And the next big question that I like to ask people is, what sets you apart, right? I want to know from them why they're different than every other person that's in their industry. We all have competition, right? I mean, I do. When I was a marketing consultant, I did. Now that I'm a CRM consultant, Lord knows that I do, right? We all have that competition. If you're a real estate agent, if you're, in commercial real estate, residential real estate, you've got plenty of competition. If you're in insurance, if you're in office furniture, right? There's plenty of competition out there. So I want to know what sets you apart, right? If you can articulate to me why I should recommend you instead of somebody else inside of 10 seconds, 15 seconds, well, that tells me quite a bit about you and quite a bit about what you do, right? Because oftentimes being able to articulate that so quickly is a learned experience. It's something that takes a while to kind of get into. And so by telling me that, by being able to answer that question quickly, I know that you've probably been doing this for a while, right? By being able to answer that question and really define what sets you apart, I know that you've looked at the competition, you understand the competition, you know who they are, right? I know that I can refer you, and I can, more than likely anyway, refer you to a client of mine, to a partner of mine, to anybody in my world. And because you know what you do and you really know what sets you apart, I can be able to do so. I can be able to do so confidently and make that introduction, right? So because of this, this is one of my favorite questions, because it really does a deep dive into who you are as a business person, who you are as a prospect, and it helps me to know, yes, this person is somebody who's really worth connecting with, really worth having a follow-up conversation with, because I want them in my network. Okay, so let me ask you now, are there any really killer networking questions that you always ask, right? I mean, these are the 5 of mine, and I've got my list here that I'm going off of, that I'm kind of repeating back to you, but are there any really great networking questions that you always ask, that you make sure to ask as you're having these conversations? If so, I want to hear them. Drop down in the comments, let me know what they are. While you're down there, hit the like button and maybe hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so yet, so that we know that you're getting something out of the video. So the next question that I'm going to kind of dive into a little bit here is another question that's mostly about how well you know your world, right? So this question that I like to ask is, how do you typically find your business? So I ask that question because, again, I want to know how good of a partner we're going to be, right? I want to know, are you networking? Are you out there making connections? Are you making introductions to people and getting introductions from people? If people are referring you business, if people are making these connections from you, then more than likely you've developed some sort of reputation, right? At least, and people know you. So again, I want to know people that other people know, because those are the people that can refer me business. Those are the people that can make connections for me. So I want to know those people. So if you know how you're developing business, and again, I do a lot of my business development through networking. And so if you answer that question with, well, I do a ton of networking, I make a lot of connections, I meet a lot of people, well, you're somebody that I want to follow up with, right? That's not necessarily the case for everybody. This is me. And so for you specifically, maybe you're looking for people that are cold calling all the time, because you want to be able to leverage that cold calling group, that cold calling prospecting group. You want to be able to leverage their team to be able to maybe draw referrals off of, right? Absolutely fine. If you say, listen, I do a lot of cold calling, and I connect with people that do a lot of cold calling. I do a lot of digital marketing, and maybe I can develop partnerships with these different people. All of those are fantastic, but knowing that and knowing the types of person that you're looking for, knowing the type of person, knowing what they're doing and what they're doing for business development, how they're building their business is important, because again, it tells me how I'm able to make those connections and how I'm able to really, really, really dial in to our relationship moving forward. And the last question that I like to make sure to ask when I'm at a networking event is, What other events have you been to recently that you found valuable, right? I do a lot of networking, and if you're going to something that I don't know about, I want to hear about it, right? Because I want to check it out too. I want to be able to find that, right? Again, every event, every single event can be valuable in some way, right? If it's not for the connections that you make, if it's not for the event itself, then oftentimes as a learning opportunity, right? You're able to learn more and get more information, maybe get some competitive intelligence, maybe find out more about the events, the other events that are going on, maybe find out what's working for other people, right? You may find yourself in a group of a networking group of all of your competitors, right? It's entirely possible. It's happened to me before, believe it or not. But what I was able to get out of that was, tell me, consultant to consultant, CRM guy to CRM guy, right? What's working for you? How are you having conversations? What are you talking about when you're talking to people, right? This is what I'm hearing. This is what I'm learning. How about yourself, right? Share information, right? Information is, yes, it's power. It's hugely valuable, but it's also a resource that, you know, at the end of the day, if you're trading it back and forth, even if it's with competition, or, you know, as long as it's not to protected information, of course, but as long as you're sharing information that you're free to share back and forth with other people, sharing about your own experiences, right? All that information can do wonders for you. You can do so much with that, and you're going to get a lot back, right? You're going to get a lot of people talking to you. You're going to hear a lot of people about what you're going to hear a lot from people about what they're doing and what's working for them. So definitely valuable. What else are you doing, right? What other events are you going to? What prospecting methods are you using that you're finding are working? Have you ever tried digital marketing? Have you ever tried social advertising? What's worked, what hasn't, right? Those types of things, right? Again, I focus in on networking, on different networking events, right? Where else are you going that you found it to be valuable, right? That you've enjoyed the experience, you've met a lot of people, it's been a solid group, those types of things. Really impactful. But if you can do more than that, if you're about digital marketing, if you're about cold calling, if you're about direct selling, whatever it is, use that as a way to get more information and turn that around in your business so that, again, when you leave that event, it's not a complete waste. All right, so now that you have the answers to all these questions, you should have a pretty good sense of whether or not the person that you're talking to is actually somebody that you want to continue a conversation with, right? Schedule some more time later on, so on and so forth. To give you kind of an idea, these conversations usually take me about 5 minutes to have, right? And so there's a little bit of back and forth. It's the what do you do, who you're working with, those types of things, and then we move on, right? So about 5 minutes or so out of a 2-hour networking event, you can go through a lot of these things, right? So take that time and make sure that you, again, get that person opening up. And if they're not going to be valuable to your business, move on. Go to the next conversation. Find somebody who's going to be valuable to your business, because again, this is your prospecting time. This is your time to be developing business, not necessarily just to be out there making friends. You can do that all you want outside of those things, but while you're at a networking event, realistically you should be trying to fulfill your goals. So, and I'll leave you with one last tip, one last question that I like to leave every conversation with, assuming that I want to talk again. We should get together again. Are you interested in having a follow-up conversation? Yes or no? Simple as that, right? And then if they say yes, follow up. If they say no, I guess you could ask why they're, what they're doing there anyway. But regardless, if they say no, move on. That's okay. No harm, no foul, right? Again, move on to the next person. So, but find out if they're interested in having a follow-up conversation with you. Find out if they're willing to, if they're interested in getting together again. And if they are, then make sure you're doing your follow-up. You'd be surprised at how many more meetings you'll get just by asking that question before you send the follow-up email asking for a meeting. All right, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. While you're here, if you haven't yet, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, maybe leave us a comment. That always helps us in this whole YouTube algorithm that we're playing with. And while you're at it, check out the videos that are on your screen here, and we'll see you next time around. Cheers.